At one point, chillingly, he says to the detectives, you know, clowns can get away with murder.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at serial killers who manage to somehow win people over.
If you're going to do something, do it well, and leave something with you. Leave a sign to let the world know that you were there.
Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker. Known by a few chilling titles, but most prominently as the Night Stalker, Ramirez terrorized Los Angeles and San Francisco in the mid-1980s.
The Night Stalker killed at least 13 times, 13 people who were awakened in the night to face death. At least 15 others survived his brutal attacks.
Despite his gruesome crimes, he possessed a strange allure. With his dark, piercing eyes and rock star-like demeanor, Ramirez captivated the public and garnered a fan base of rabid female admirers.
He had no empathy, no feelings, nothing. He never showed any remorse for what he had done. He wanted to be known as the greatest serial killer that ever lived.
During his trial, he would flash a sardonic smile and show off the pentagram he had drawn on his palm, an emblem of his allegiance to Satan. His bad boy appeal was enough to earn sympathy from many of his fans, some of whom even began to question his guilt.
Ramirez became a celebrity in his own right, and he had groupies, he had marriage proposals, he had women that wanted to come and visit him at the prison.
Dennis Nielsen, aka the Kindly Killer. Nielsen's dark deeds have led to his being likened to Jeffrey Dahmer, which is hardly a flattering comparison.
One of the biggest murder investigations ever is now underway in London after the discovery of the remains of 3 men's bodies.
It was horrific. It made the hair in the back of my neck stand up.
Hailing from Scotland, Nielsen was convicted of murdering and dismembering 12 males in North London in the late 70s and early 80s. What made him especially unsettling was his ability to appear like a perfectly normal individual, one you probably wouldn't have picked out of a crowd.
I sat in the back with Nielsen. I said, "Are we talking about one body or two?" And he just turned around and looked at me and he said, 15 or 16.
This gentle everyman persona may have made him seem less threatening to those he came across. Some have described Nielsen as an incredibly lonely individual who killed for quote-unquote company, which almost makes us feel for him.
He knew perfectly well he would be found guilty, and he knew he deserved it. He knew he should be.
Almost. Andrew Cunanan. This private school alumnus was responsible for the deaths of 5 people, including iconic fashion designer Gianni Versace.
In 1997, Andrew Cunanan sent authorities on a frantic cross-country manhunt as he drove state to state, killing 4 people along the way, ultimately arriving at Gianni Versace's doorstep.
Cunanan possessed impressive eloquence, intelligence, and ability to tell captivating stories, i.e. lies, allowing him to blend seamlessly into high society circles. His posh peers knew him as fashionable, fluent in multiple languages, quick-witted, and devilishly handsome.
Andrew's self-worth was tied to the finer things in life, what they could do for him. Being accepted in high society and by wealthy people was what he expected. If he didn't get them, he was lost.
But as we know, beneath this swanky exterior was a deeply disturbed and dangerous man. Cunanan's social adeptness and good looks made him a chameleon and allowed him to avoid suspicion as he navigated his killing spree.
He just showed up, quite a number of times, almost every other day, and he would just say hello, goodbye. Very soft-spoken, very, very timid type of person.
Charles Sobrage. Born in Saigon in 1944, Sobrage is a skilled manipulator and con artist.
And what you would do is pick a person or a couple, drug them.
Yes, that's correct.
Take their passport and any valuables they might have and move on.
That's correct.
He's been called a lot of sinister nicknames, such as the Bikini Killer and the Serpent, the latter being a testament to his persuasive communication skills and almost hypnotic allure. These traits proved effective in his dozens of killings, which involved meticulous plans and schemes to obtain his victims' trust.
Sobrage was dubbed the Bikini Killer and later the Serpent, a name stemming from his reputation of disguising himself. He spent 20 years in prison in India, before 20 more in Nepal.
Those who fell prey to the Serpent serpent were typically tourists on the hippie trail in South Asia. Sbraj would offer travel advice, shelter, and other means of assistance to lure in those he ended up murdering. This same talent for deception helped him steer clear of police for many years.
Charles Sbraj evaded police for years until he was locked up for life in 2004, charged with the murders of 2 tourists in Kathmandu.
Leonarda Cianciulli. Here's one you may not have heard of. This Italian murderer is also known as the soap maker of Correggio due to her habit of making cleaning products out of her victims' boiled bodies. She also baked them into tea cakes. Revolting tastes aside, Cianciulli was revered among people in her village, particularly other females, who came to her for help finding jobs or husbands. Under the guise of playing matchmaker, Cianciulli killed the women, harvested their bodies, and stole their money and assets. Jeffrey Dahmer. The infamous Jeffrey Dahmer has a plethora of chilling sobriquets, including the Milwaukee Monster and Cannibal.
Jeffrey Dahmer was responsible for killing more than a dozen people. The majority of those murders happened in an apartment near the Marquette campus.
But to those he encountered in his regular life, Dahmer didn't seem capable of harming anyone. While he was said to be outgoing as a kid, quite a few people have described the adult Dahmer as quiet, unassuming, and soft-spoken.
He did what successful serial killers do. He blended. They blend in with society.
In this way, he's unique from some of the more gregarious types on this list. Rather than luring in victims with charm, it's suggested he lulled them into a false sense of security. It's hard to decide whether or not that's even scarier.
And he carefully went about his killings under the radar of the police and the people of Milwaukee.
H.H. Holmes. Likely the first documented American serial killer, H.H. Holmes swindled, lied, and killed with unparalleled ease.
In essence, this is a person who spends a lot of time fantasizing about death and killing. But overall, there's more to this. The killing is actually part of the fulfillment of his fantasy process.
Holmes sported a polished appearance and suave, confident demeanor. It was this gentlemanly pretense that enabled him to commit various acts of fraud and bigamy in his early criminal career. And that was just the beginning. Holmes went on to construct what he called a murder castle.
The frightening thing about Holmes is that he was not mad, that he used his intelligence and his ability to plan in order to carry out the killings.
Reports on what was in the castle have varied wildly, so no one is 100% certain what Holmes kept in his labyrinth of death. However, we do know those brought there were subjected to a horrific fate.
But what Holmes has done is to create really a killing machine, a factory for getting these bodies, for harvesting these individuals who innocently have come into contact with him.
John Wayne Gacy. If you already thought clowns were creepy, wait until you hear about this one.
John Wayne Gacy was a popular socialite who spent his weekends dressed as a clown, entertaining children.
Portly psychopath John Wayne Gacy was notorious not only for the brutality of his crimes, but for being a master at hiding his true intentions. As a successful businessman and father of 2, he was very popular in his community.
Gacy shows his own importance, and he's the cool guy now, so he's the friend of these other males. And again, this gives him this sense of importance and prominence with the other members of the Jaycees.
A role in local politics and charitable events further cemented his facade as a likable figure. Frequently attempting to befriend and provide guidance to younger males, Gacy successfully weaseled his way through life. And even more disturbing was his clown alter ego. He'd perform dark magic tricks that often ended in the victim's demise.
There's just something horrifically sinister and monstrous about this figure of Pogo. Just an element that raises Gacy to the level of a kind of mythic American monster.
Charles Manson. Manson stands out among others on this list in that he didn't physically commit any murders, at least that we know of.
I did stay clear. I did stay clear of everything.
But they say you didn't because they were acting for you on your instructions.
No.
And under your influence.
Well, maybe influence.
Rather, he was the leader of a cult called the Manson family, to whom he preached a twisted philosophy. Likely amplified by his constant use of psychedelics, Manson's doctrine was pretty whacked out, combining elements of the counterculture movement and apocalyptic prophecy.
To outsiders and filmmakers, Manson's Ranch was what the 60s was all about. Free love and plenty of LSD. but it would soon turn much darker.
Nonetheless, he managed to convince his followers to perform heinous acts on his behalf, including the slaying of pregnant actress Sharon Tate and friends. Manson's influence over his family members resulted in one of the most tragic incidents in the history of Hollywood.
Over 2 nights in August 1969, actress Sharon Tate and 6 others had been slain in one of the century's most infamous crimes.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is often regarded as the epitome of a charismatic serial killer.
Ted Bundy was one of the most prolific and violent serial killers in American history. The psychopath with movie star good looks would prove to the world that not even jail could contain his murderous obsession.
His good looks and intelligence masked his horrific nature, enabling him to attract and murder at least 30 women across the United States in the 1970s. Bundy's ability to feign injury or impersonate authority figures allowed him to gain the trust of his victims effortlessly.
That's the thing, that Ted Bundy's victims were good people, upstanding college girls who were willing to be helpful.
Even during his trial, he captivated the nation, representing himself in court and winning over some with his articulate speech and confident demeanor. Bundy's unique blend of desirability and brutality has made him a household name.
Everything we know about serial killers was turned on its head when we saw that he wasn't the creepy man in the raincoat, but he was the law student, the handsome guy in the polo shirt, the guy driving the little car. He can be a murderer too.
Which serial killer do you find strangely charming? Join the discussion in the comments.
He wrote in his yearbook, in his high school yearbook, "Après moi, le déluge." After me, the flood.
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.